Hello there, good morning, and welcome to an interview with Brian Holinka, lead combat designer on World of Warcraft. Did I get that right? Is that your
That's
current role?
correct. Yep.
Lead
Yep. That's my
combat
current
designer.
role. Yes,
Fantastic,
correct. Yep.
fantastic. How you doing today, Brian?
Good. Good. Thank you. It's a kind of a gray sky day, rare gray sky day here in Southern California. But happy to be here. Happy to be chatting with you.
That's every single day in the UK. I tell you,
Yes. Yes.
that's our summer. That's how it is here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
all right, so I've got a few. I've got a lot about like the Evoker and things like that. So I guess we'll
Cool.
we'll just dive into it. So my
Great.
first one is with the Evoker coming, obviously in Dragonflight. What kind of raid utility or dungeon utility are we kind of looking at for the Evoker?
That's something we're still designing. We have a number of ideas, but you know, it's interesting because it's always tough for any class to find a unique raid utility. Or sometimes what we'll hear with some of the hybrid classes is, the unique utility our class provides, the tank version provides to the class, so they don't bring the DPS, or vice versa if the DPS is performing well. So always a hard problem for us to find. They have great hybrid healing. We're also kind of playing with a raid buff called Blessing of the Bronze. It reduces cooldowns of each player's major movement ability, and it's like things like blank or heroic leap or sprint, and so that's something similar to the priest ability that reduces the holy priest ability that reduces defensive cooldowns, and so that's something we're experimenting with. It could be valuable for flights with a lot of movement, or a mythic plus when you're really trying to push your keys and get moving through the dungeon quickly. So that's something we're kind of experimenting with now, but I think we'll see a lot of feedback from people once alpha and beta start, and we'll kind of act accordingly.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun just to dive into those that class and race for the very first time. It's always super exciting in the alpha and beta stages. It changes so much all the time as well, which is
It does.
always fun to mess around with.
It
So I
does. I
guess,
mean, if you
sorry.
think of like Havoc Demon Hunter, I don't know that Darkness came online right away. I remember
Yeah.
that being something we had to add to the game a bit later. So new things are always iterative.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I guess I haven't seen this question asked, and I don't know why, but I'm going to ask it. What resource do they use?
So they have Essence, which kind of represents their innate prismatic magic, and it regenerates on its own. So they have, different this essence that they use for different abilities, and so they don't generate it; it just kind of is working in the background, and then they spend it in time.
Oh, okay, interesting. So a brand new resource for the Evoker.
Hmm.
That's exciting.
Hmm.
I guess racials as well for the Dracthyr Evoker. What are we kind of looking at there?
A couple things. It's interesting because they're this race class combo. It's like, well, sometimes we lose track. What part is the class? What part is the race? But their racials right now are wing buffet. I mean, they have big wings, right? So they have a kind of a cone knockback, as you would expect. Tail swipe. They have their big cool dragon tails, and it felt like that's something you're going to want to do something with. So that has kind of like a PB AOE knockup. And then chosen identity, which changes the appearance of your visage form at the barbershop for free. We feel like their visage form is something that they're magically changing into. So
Yeah,
that's something they can do at any time. And there's some others that were in early development, but we're not really ready to talk about them just yet.
yeah. Ah, that's cool. I guess getting them ready for when they turn to a warrior eventually, right? I guess talking well, I'll throw this one in there actually. As you mentioned, the
Yeah,
forms. Is that like a custom
yeah.
animation between them, kind of changing from dragon to mortal form?
That's something we're still working on. I can't really. It's not necessarily when you remember Morgan like
Yeah,
doing this whole bestial like come out, because it's not that same type of thing. If you think about the cinematic where Rathian is kind of going back and forth between the dragon form and the human form, it's kind of like a puff of smoke.
yeah.
So obviously we're going to do a treatment on it, but I don't believe there's any like animations of like wings popping back in and tails disappearing. It's more of it's a magic thing.
Yeah, yeah, no, it makes sense. Makes sense. I guess as their healer spec, is there anything like any similar healers to them in the way that they play as such? Would you say?
Hmm. You know, as with everything, we try to kind of have something distinct. They're this kind of mid-range mobile healer, and they kind of triage clumps of allies with their flight and breath healing. So they have both their version of deep breath, which is, if you think of that Wrathgate cinematic where Sarah and the dragons are flying over, kind of healing everyone with the breath. That's kind of the image and the vision for their big healing cooldown. And then also they have an empowered breath. And so those are the big, kind of breath spray off in these clumped allies, but also they use time magic to kind of preempt damage and set up large healing moments. So there's a little bit of thought about, hey, what's coming and how can I use this to plan? So in that way, you could see it kind of being this combination of, Resto Shaman who kind of likes clumped healing and Discipline Priest that likes planning. Those kind of are two, I guess, comparisons that you could have. But really, we're trying to make it its own thing. I wouldn't say that we're trying to replace either of those. We're trying to have them stand on their own.
That's good. That's exciting. I guess you mentioned the empowered ability. That's obviously the charge up ability, right? If I'm not mistaken. I believe it's called Dream Breath. Am I right in thinking that?
That's correct.
That's what the website says, yeah. So with that ability, if you overcharge it, can you cause it to fail?
No. So when you charge an ability, it'll get the max and then it'll kind of stay at full power for up to 3 seconds. After that, it just fires off automatically. So there's some applications in like doing pre-pull or threatening enemies to come out from line of sight in PvP or whatnot, where you're just holding it at max charge and waiting for them.
Oh, okay, cool. I noticed on the website actually as well, I don't know if it was just for the website, but there's like a new like floor animation of sorts, like on where the cone's going to go. Is that something?
Yes, we're working on some new type of imagery and decals for, hey, this is the cone, and finding something a bit unique for them, because we've done kind of experiments with Empower. We've tried a lot of things, like because thinking about this problem of like there's a cost and risk analysis of how long you hold the button down. Like, all right, I'm holding this button down, so I'm using globals to keep this down. What is the payoff, right? And so we've been playing with a lot of things, like maybe it's the longer you hold it, the shorter the cooldown is, or the longer the duration of hot or dot is, or the number of targets that you hit increases. And so those are like decisions, because we don't want you to just always go to max empowerment, right? Like if that was what there's nothing new about that. That's just a long cast time, right? We want you to sometimes be thinking, I only want a 1 charge in power here. I only want a 2 charge in power here. I don't always want to go to max 3. So yes, to your point, there are different unique kind of projected textures that we're using to aim these abilities.
That's going to be awesome, yeah. I said it was a little tease of it on the website, and I thought that looked really cool, so yeah. I guess finish up with the Dracthyr. Question for you is, what are you most excited about? What's the ability, or like what about the Dracthyr Evoker are you most excited about?
Yeah, I have 2. I one is Soar, which is you kind of burst forward a little bit, and then you're kind of hovering in the air a little bit, flapping your wings, and there are certain abilities you can cast on the move with that. And every time I soar, I mean, we'll be in our play tests, and I'm just like, more soar. We need more soar, because this button is just so fun to play with, because that's when you're flying around, breathing, launching fire from your mouth, or breathing disintegrate, and like really honing in and channeling damage into an enemy, and it just really feels like it captures that fantasy. And then and similar is Deep Breath, which is, hey, I'm going to get up and do this kind of bombing run across the battlefield and hit a whole bunch of targets. They just, I'm a big explosions guy. They say it a Timmy in the video game world, in the video game design world, where I'm just all about like the presentation and the fantasy, and I love just that makes me feel like I'm a dragon now, and so I love those 2 abilities.
Yeah, I think that's the class fantasy as well, right? Just you want to feel like a dragon and whatnot, which is really cool. I did actually think of another kind of on the spot question, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously they start at 58, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with talent points, are you just going to start with a bunch of talent points that you have to allocate, or how is that going to work for the Dracthyr?
We're working that out in the starting experience. One thought is that we would be giving a lot of talent points out in the starting experience. Get similar to how in Legion with the Demon Hunter, you were kind of going around getting abilities off of the demons. It's possible. One thing we've explored is while you're questing, you're getting talent points, so that it's a little bit more measured. Because yes, that's just a lot to get all at once. And you log in, you create your Dracthyr, you're totally pumped to start playing, and the first thing you do is open up the talent tree and spend 50 points. So we're looking at ways to kind of distribute that out slowly.
Yeah, I think the original Death Knight and Wrath Lich game was similar. You would get talent points from questing, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yeah.
So kind of jumping into like talents, spells, classes, things like that. I ask this every single interview, every single time. Any new class race combos coming at all?
Yeah, we kind of have this direction, like a broad direction, and I don't want to make any huge promises, but we kind of feel like we want to move towards a world where the race of a character is not a limiter for what they can do or what they can become in the world of Warcraft. So we're working towards that, but not all of the races have, all of the classes have the same kind of content requirements. So more of this will come over time, but immediately on 10.0, we're going to be making rogues, mages, and priests available for all races. So everyone will be able to go out and make their sneaky Tauren rogue, who will be, tiptoeing on their little hoofs all around. But yes, all those will be introduced in 10 with, general intentions for us to look at more options down the line. But immediately upon 10.0 launch, you'll be able to make change your rogue, mage, or priest to any class combination you want. It can be any race.
That is awesome. I'll be remiss to ask about like Night Elf Paladins and things like that. I know a lot of the Paladin community want a lot more Paladins. I hear that a lot.
Yep.
But yeah.
As I was saying, like we're trying to move in that direction, but I think timeline is something we'll have to be flexible on, because a lot of those other classes they have a lot of content requirements and lore requirements. Just to flip the switch on like Paladin or Warlock, without kind of setting some kind of grounding in the world, would be a bit strange. But we also, we have racial chargers, we have racial totems, all those sorts of things. So, and druid forms. So it's gonna take a while to continue to open things up, but we're gonna keep moving in that direction.
That's really exciting. That's really, really awesome.
Yeah.
I guess with Exiles Reach now as well, it makes it a lot easier to just kind of flip the switch on some of those as well, because you just kind of throw them in there. So I did have one on talent points. So I noticed on the presentation there was a kind of a share feature as such, right? And I was just kind of curious if that's something you can share outside of the game potentially, or is that just in-game for now?
Was that in the mock-up? Yeah, I think that's something we've talked a lot about, and as something we would want. We think it would be very nice for players to just be able to create a string of their talent build. I don't know that we're going to be able to deliver that on 10.0 just for production reasons, whether we can get it all done in time. But we've talked a lot about sharing builds and recommended builds, starter builds. But part of it is like, just laying the groundwork and the foundation of the system and seeing what problems players have or what tools would make things easier for them. I would like to really see players work with it before like trying to get ahead and add a bunch of functionality that maybe we don't need or people don't care about. The question of just like, do we want players all to really feel like they have to have 20 talent builds? Most players in the game now, we have telemetry on it. They'll pick make their choices in their talent rows, and they never, change them. And so while we want there to be this sense of agency of building your character as you're leveling up and making some interesting choices and maybe experimenting on a regular basis, I don't know that we want players to feel like, they've got to download the latest build on a regular basis. to keep up. So we want the system to have some fun of tinkering, but not like, oh, I constantly need to be changing this thing. And so it remains to be seen just how much we'll need those types of features. So we're gonna wait and see for now.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I know Ian mentioned about them, you guys posting the talents out before alpha, even potentially for us to have a little look.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Our goal is we're talking about the right way to do it now, but to make some talent trees available via website or blogs or whatnot. Maybe work with some partners to try and get that out to people, so people can start kind of playing with them. Because
yep.
even the way we work on these is we'll all get in a Zoom call. Someone will share their latest talent build, and we'll all just sit there for an hour and a half or so, just making builds and tinkering with it and explaining, like, I was at this point in the talent tree, and I didn't feel like I had a compelling choice, or I felt really pigeonholed into this direction. So that would be great to get from players. So finding the way to do that without necessarily releasing the whole game to do that it's in our best interest, and I think players would be excited. So we really want to work with everyone on making these great.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of feedback coming with those. It's going to be absolutely crazy as soon as they come out. I'm really looking forward to it.
No strangers to feedback. So.
Yeah, true. So I guess, correct me if I'm wrong. So the way that it kind of works is you start getting talents at level 10, and you essentially like create your class as such. So you kind of like, you have kind of base abilities at level 10, and you just kind of pick and choose which ones you'd like to go from there. I guess my question is related to interrupts. Is interrupt something that's going to be baseline for all characters, or is that something you can actually opt in or out of having?
Yep, I think that's going to be part of this iterative process we're talking about. Part of this is, like reframing a bit about how World of Warcraft World of Warcraft classes are created, right? Because you're going from level 10 to 60, and you're getting like 50 talent points, right? 26 on the class side, 51 talent points, 26 on the class side, 25 on the spec side. That's a lot of talent points. And in 9.0 and every before, like, we were just giving you things every level, and we can't do that and then also give you 51 talent points. Like, that is going to lead to very bloated classes, very complicated classes that I don't think everybody has the brain space for. And so what we're trying to do is say, well, the talent tree is how you construct your class now. And so I can understand trepidation about, like, ooh, are interrupts in the tree? The way the trees work, and this wasn't like completely explained because we didn't have time to get really deep on all the trees. But as you spend points, you get to certain levels, which we call gates, which are like, and this is how the original talent systems were, right? It was like you can't go further until you spend, increments of 5 points.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here we have just two levels like that. And so what it kind of encourages, you can't go straight to the bottom. Like right away, I'm just going straight down to the highest best thing, and I'm getting that capstone talent at level 20, and now I have other points to spend in the rest of the tree. You're kind of encouraged to go broad a bit, so before you can move downwards. I think that does two things. One, it really encourages you to go broad and to say, well, cool, rather than going deep in the class tree just to get what I want, I can, I almost feel relieved. Like, I can go spend talent points on some cool utility over on the other side of the tree. But also, yeah, I don't have to make a choice between this, premier talent and maybe an interrupt. Or earlier up in the tree, things are much more accessible, I guess, is the bottom line there. And then, yes, it allows those real capstone talents to come later on, which is nice. I think in any of these tree designs, that last talent point you spend is not always the most exciting point, at level 60, because you've kind of driven down to what you want, and then you have extra points to spend.
Yeah.
But in general, I think, we're going to put as much as we can in the talent tree to make the talent trees as cool as they can. And if we find that, like, no, this won't fly, we can't do a certain ability in the tree, we'll put it back in the spell book. But ultimately, we're trying as hard as we can to put as much stuff in the tree as possible.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. I mean, how many? I mean, obviously it's going to change between classes, but how many kind of abilities are we going to be looking at, like just baseline without, like, say at level 10? Are we saying
Yeah.
like maybe 4 or 5 abilities by that point, just kind of regular sort of stuff?
Well, you're absolutely correct that the Exiles Reach experience we're mostly remaining the same. So
Yep.
if you were to play Exiles Reach now and level up to 10, the abilities that you got there are mostly the same. So players will have that
Hmm.
core kit. But yeah, between 10 and 60, yeah, the spell book, the spells granted from the spell book are going to be pretty sparse. Like things like Pickpocket, Eyes of the Beast, Farsight, underwater underwater breath, stuff like that. Like we don't want you to spend the talent point on that. We
Yep.
don't think you want to spend the talent point on that. Those are kind of like fun class toys. And so a lot of those things are going to be in the spell book. But yeah, where the trickier things are like, yeah, major utility, like rebirth or interrupts, like what are we going to do with those?
Yep.
And I just want everybody to know that those are questions we're asking because we know you're asking them,
Hmm.
and we're having a lot of conversations about them, and we're making a lot of trees to try out different solutions.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks.
Hmm.
Just had a thought actually. Again, we're just kind of like I have like a list of questions. And I'm like, oh, what about
Yeah,
this?
that's fine. Yeah, no, ask away.
Obviously,
It's all
Exile's
good.
Reach. Once you reach the end of
Hmm.
Exile's Reach, you go to the city and they tell you how to use specializations. Is that going to
Hmm.
be being changed up?
Yeah, specializations are still a choice that you make because that reveals the second tree,
Yep.
and so that's something we're going to have to change in the what we call the kind of transitional experience out of Exile's Reach. But yes, you will still be making a spec choice.
Okay, cool, perfect. I did see Convoke in the Druid tree.
Hmm.
That was there. Is there any point, or potentially any point, that there'll be like more than one Covenant ability available for one class? So say you could have like the Kyrian ability and the Venthyr ability.
Yeah, it's possible. I'm sure you could make a build. I think we have in the Resto tree, which we've kind of spent a lot of time on the Druid tree. It was kind of our vertical slice tree, and I believe there had like adaptive swarm and convoke might have been a possibility at one point. So yeah, it's possible, but you're probably giving something up
Yep.
to do that. So but it depends also on we're still kind of in discussion about how we're going to handle a lot of these covenant abilities. Some of them like convoke the spirits or abomination limb, their kit feels very appropriate, where other ones don't, like it just doesn't fit with the class, and so we're deciding how we're going to handle those.
Yeah. So I guess with obviously the Evoker, the Dracthyr Evoker getting a lot of love, is there any in the way for other classes to get any brand new talents, or is it going to be kind of maybe potentially things from past expansions coming back or anything like that?
Yeah, certainly when we look for inspiration in these talent trees, we're going to be looking to, artifacts, artifact traits, Azurite traits, essences, the legendaries we just had. A lot of those will be finding their way into the trees. It'll be, likely that if we have new talents, they may be passive talents that have like
Yep.
rotational impact. There are probably going to be less flashy new on-use buttons with like big effects. I don't think we're going to see as many of those.
Yep.
Maybe just a handful throughout all the classes. Because when we have a new class like Evoker, we spend as much time as we can to make sure that's like super cool. And adding new effects, new abilities, it can be a lot of time spent. So
Yeah.
that's where we're trying to really deliver on in this expansion.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, the class is going to feel pretty fantastic anyway, having that tree to play around with anyway, right? So it's
Yes,
going to
yes.
be
Yeah, I
dope.
mean it's gonna feel, like I think it'll be a very big improvement for like the leveling experience too, but we want to make sure that the max level player who's been playing the game is having a fun time experimenting with a new system.
Yep. So got a couple PvP ones, then we'll do a quick
Sure.
fire sort of round.
Okay.
So I think Bajira asked you about arenas and battlegrounds for
Hmm.
Dragonflight. What about brawls?
Yep. Brawls, we've been talking about a few, and so we'd like to bring some in. There are different things. Like it's funny, I was just talking with someone another day, just yesterday, but there's some old like free for all world quests, like in Legion that were pretty fun. The Black Rook Brawl, which was kind of like a jump in battle royale arena thing that was pretty fun, or if you remember the old High Mall Coliseum from Warlords of Draenor, those were ideas that we were talking about. We're have grown the PvP team a bit, and they've been onboarding lately, and so new brawls are a great way to kind of learn the tool set. Yeah, it's likely. I don't have like particulars to announce, but I do think there will be opportunity to create new brawls here.
Yeah, I love brawls. I mean, I'm a pretty casual PvPer, but some of those brawls are a lot of fun. It's super cool.
Yeah, they're good twists.
So obviously with the new work order system coming in Dragonfly, which looks really cool, really looking forward to playing around with that. Will there be any interaction with PvP gear, potentially, similar to like in Mr. Pandaria, used to do PvP gear through crafting?
Yes, we have kind of two plans, and I don't want to steal too much thunder about professions and where they're going and the plans. But certainly one opportunity we think there is to make that kind of entry level PvP gear from professions. If you do remember Warlords of Draenor, and I've alluded to the Warlords of Draenor PvP gearing system in the Bajira interview, like the first entry level PvP gear was just crafted gear, and then it had a very high item level, a PvP item level, but somewhat low base PvE item level. And so that will be one way for players to get gear real fast. Will be that crafted gear. But then there's also the professions. That revamp is going to be something that impacts the game, and players will. PvP players will want profession gear, and we're talking about, and I don't have the very specifics of how we will integrate PvP and professions, and how players can earn profession reagents that would interact with these systems from PvP. But we're mindful of the fact that a lot of people want to focus on PvP, and so if professions are important, there will be ways to interact with that system through PvP.
That's good. That's good. I'm sure PvPers out there are pretty happy about that, because they probably saw the work order system. We're like, oh, hopefully we get to do something with that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess the dragon flying, I believe it's called dragon flying, right? The kind of flying around the zone thing, the system. Will there be PvP specific unlocks for your dragon? Because I know you can customize it similar to like the barbershop sort of thing. Is there going to be any unlocks related to that?
Yes, certainly the Gladiator mount is going to be a custom Dragon Isle Drake. So we didn't want players to have to choose between, like, should I wear my, should I be flying around on my Gladiator mount, or should I be flying around on my super awesome Dragon Isle Drake? And so the way that Gladiator mounts are going to work in the expansion are going to be a prestigious version of those Drakes that you can apply. So that'll be really cool and a good opportunity. And then we'll have to look for other ways that we're going to kind of, like, we always have the what we call the vicious mounts, the rated participation mounts. And so I would have to look at the specifics of what we're doing there, but those are typically ground mounts, so they won't likely, there'll be some of the one of the cool creatures that you see around. Actually, now I think of the one it is, and it's pretty sweet. Actually, it's pretty funny. Every time those vicious mounts come out, people are like, people on the team who don't PvP are messaging me like, I got a PvP next season, because that mount is just so amazing. So, but those are usually going to be ground mounts, and we're going to keep that.
So you're saying it's going to be a vicious otter mount? That's incredible, Brian.
That's right.
Thanks for confirming
vicious, it. Believe me, if there's a possibility of getting a vicious duck, I will ask for it.
Oh my goodness, please. So running low on time, quick fire round, I guess. Yes, no, or,
sure.
or if you can expand on it a little bit more. So first and foremost is, can we make more than one Dracthyr Evoker per realm, as it's a hero class?
I want to get the specifics on this, because I know this will be a big deal. So this won't be so I'm immediately not making it fast.
Okay.
This round, hold on. I do have this written down. I want to make sure I get the specifics correct. Wait, where is it? So initially, yes, it's going to be one. Apparently I didn't copy this over. So the first Dracthyr per account has no restrictions other than having, bought Dragonflight. Additional Dracthyr beyond the first one can only be created on a server where someone already has a level 50 character and does not have a Dracthyr. So initially it's only going to be one Dracthyr per realm.
Okay. Excellent.
And obviously, if you delete a Dracthyr, you can make a new one.
Yeah.
But yes, so everybody gets to make a Dracthyr. the first. If you want to make a second one, you have to be level 50, and then it's only one per realm.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for confirming.
Yeah.
New glyphs for Evokers? Will there be glyphs?
I'm sure there will be.
Yeah. Race-specific mount. Do you know if they have a race-specific mount?
They are
They
their
are
own
the
flying
mount.
mount. Yes, yes, yes.
Awesome. What we got? PvP World Quest returning? Dragonflight? I would imagine so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And last one. I've had a million warriors in my DMs, and I'll be remiss to ask this. Will Gladiator Stance come back? They keep asking me. It's non-stop.
Yeah, I don't think so. It was problematic in terms of, you know, when we have roles now, and you're declaring that you're a tank, and then you come in and say, I'm not actually a tank, I want to do DPS, that's problematic.
Yeah.
So I don't see a world where we start saying tank classes can just pick a talent and their role has changed to DPS.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's the way the game works right now. And so but I understand the vision that they have. And what we could work on is just talents that maybe let them do a little extra DPS at the cost of mitigation, but ultimately their role is tank.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate taking the time this morning to answer some of those questions, and good luck with development. I'll see you in Alpha.
Thank you.
And
Right.
yeah, thank you very much. Have a good day.
Great meeting you. Great
You
chat.
too. Take care.
Bye-bye.